All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about one of the most powerful and maybe overlooked tools in any classroom, conversation. But look, we're going way beyond the typical simple question and answer session. This is all about how you can transform those quiet, passive classrooms into these dynamic hubs where students are actually learning and making sense of things together. You know the scene. We've all been there, right? A teacher asks this fantastic, thought-provoking question. One eager hand shoots up, that one student gives the answer, and that's it. We just move on. It's a classic classroom routine, but have you ever stopped to think, what about literally everyone else? What's going on in their heads? Well, that's the silent classroom problem. And this leads to a really important question you've got to ask yourself. Is the quiet in your room the sound of deep, focused thinking? Or is it the sound of disengagement? You see, there's a huge difference between a productive quiet, where gears are turning, and a dead silence, where the real thinking just isn't happening for most of your students. And this right here really shows the shift we're talking about. We're trying to move away from that old school way, where the teacher is the only source of info, kind of hunting for that single right answer. The new way is all about student-led sense-making. The focus isn't just on what kids know, it's on how they're thinking and how they build that understanding as a group. Every student becomes an active thinker. So what's the cure? What's the antidote to that unproductive silence we were just talking about? Well, it's the power of discourse. And this isn't just a fancy word for talking more. Nope, it's about fundamentally changing how students talk and think with each other. So let's be super clear on what we actually mean by this term, meaningful discourse. Well, it's all about having conversations with a real purpose. The goal isn't just to blurt out answers, it's to build a shared collective understanding. It's where the why and the how, the reasoning behind an idea, are way more important than just getting the answer right. And I love this image because it just nails the core idea. Think about it like this. Every student's idea is like a single Lego brick. Through good discourse, the whole class works together to build this amazing, solid tower of knowledge. And that process, it doesn't just build understanding of the topic, it sharpens their critical thinking, makes them better communicators, and sparks real, genuine curiosity. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds amazing in theory, but how in the world do we actually do it? How do we make it happen? Well, that's where the Facilitator's Toolkit comes in. We are about to break down 7 super practical, actionable strategies that you can start using in your classroom like tomorrow. Yep, 7 of them. And these are seriously powerful strategies. Just think of them as different tools for different situations, but they all have the same goal: to build a classroom culture where thinking isn't just encouraged, it's the main event. First up is this really cool idea called the breathing effect. It's all about creating a natural rhythm in your classroom. Students breathe in during those quiet moments for individual reflection, and then they breathe out when they team up to share and collaborate on their ideas. In and out. Simple, right? And here's what that cycle actually looks like in practice. You start with individual thinking time, which is key because it gives every single student a chance to get their thoughts together. Then they test out those initial ideas with a partner or in a small group. After that, you bring it to the whole class, and your job is to help weave all those different threads together. And then, this part is so important. It circles right back to individual reflection, so students can refine what they now think. It's a complete, powerful cycle. All right, next up in our toolkit, the 5 practices. Now, if the breathing effect is the rhythm of the classroom, think of this as the actual blueprint. It's a super structured way for you, the teacher, to guide these really rich student-led conversations without just taking over and doing all the thinking for them. So here are the 5 practices. First, you anticipate what students might do before the lesson even starts. Then, as they're working, you monitor what's happening. From what you see, you select specific student ideas you want to share with the class. Then you sequence them in a very intentional order to tell a story of learning. And finally, you help the class connect all those different ideas to build that deep, lasting understanding. It's basically like planning for spontaneity. Strategy number 3 is all about giving students the actual language they need to have these high-level talks. Accountable talk moves, honestly, they're like conversational cheat codes that make student thinking visible and give every part of the dialogue a clear purpose. Let's just look at a few quick examples. Just using wait time, literally just being silent for a few seconds, gives everyone a chance to process. Revoicing, where you say something like, "So what I hear you saying is," clarifies an idea for the whole room. Simple prompts like, "Who wants to add on to that?" are a direct invitation to collaborate. And of course, the magic question. why, that pushes students to explain their reasoning. They're so simple, but wow, are they effective. Next up, a couple more fantastic tools for the kit. First, thinking routines. Just think of these as little, repeatable structures like see, think, wonder that give every single student a clear on-ramp to the conversation. Then, to really take it to the next level, you can have student-facilitated discussions. This is where you truly hand over the keys and empower students with actual roles, like facilitator or summarizer, so they can run the show themselves. And our last two strategies are all about creating some real depth. First, connecting ideas across voices. This is where you teach students to stop just stating their own opinion and start listening carefully to build on, link to, or even contrast their ideas with what their classmates are saying, weaving this big tapestry of understanding. And finally, Socratic seminars. These are dedicated times to dive deep into a complex text and explore huge ideas, where the goal isn't one right answer, but a deeper understanding for everyone through shared questions. So, what actually happens when you start using these tools consistently? Well, you don't just get better conversations. You start to build a whole new kind of classroom culture. It's a truly fundamental transformation, not just for the students, but for the teacher too. And this is that transformation right here. The teacher's role, it shifts. You go from being the lecturer, the main source of information, to being a facilitator, an architect who designs the conversation. And at the exact same time, the student's role changes from being a passive bucket waiting to be filled with information to an active thinker, a true co-constructor of knowledge right alongside their friends. If you take one thing away, let it be this. This is such a profound shift in how we think about classroom talk. Discourse isn't just a time for students to share what they already have locked away in their heads. No, it is the tool they use to actively think, to process new information, and to build brand new understanding right there in the moment. Now look, it's so important to remember that this is a journey. You can see on a scale like this that an educator moves along a path, from just beginning to use these strategies all the way up to innovating with them in creative ways. The point is not to be perfect tomorrow. The point is to take that first step and just commit to growing as a facilitator of student thinking. Which really brings us to the final question. The real question is for you. Which one of these tools are you going to pick up and try first? What kind of purposeful conversation will you design for your students tomorrow to finally break the silence and let their thinking be heard?